3 years. 3 long years since I buried my husband Marcus. 3 years working 2 jobs, 16-hour days, just to pay off the $50,000 in debt he left behind. His parents told me it was life or death. Pay the loan sharks, or they'd come for me. For our son. Every Sunday I visited his grave. Every Sunday I cried and begged for forgiveness. I'm sorry I couldn't save you, Marcus. I'm sorry I wasn't enough. But last Friday night, everything I thought I knew shattered into a million pieces. I was walking up the stairs of our old apartment building, carrying the monthly check, $1,000, like clockwork, for his poor, grieving parents who could barely afford food. At least, that's what they told me. Mrs. Higgins, the elderly woman from apartment 3A, grabbed my arm as I passed her door. Her grip was surprisingly strong for someone her age. Maya, honey, come inside, now. Mrs. Higgins, I really you need to see this more. She pulled me into her dimly lit living room. The smell of chamomile tea and old newspapers filled the air. She sat me down in front of her television. An old security camera feed was paused on the screen. Grainy, green-tinted, timestamp, 2:47 a.m., last Tuesday. I installed this camera 6 months ago, she said, her voice trembling. Been having problems with package thieves. But what I caught? Maya, you need to see this. She pressed play. The hallway appeared on screen, empty at first. Then a figure emerged from the stairwell. A man. Tall. Wearing a dark hoodie and a baseball cap pulled low. He was carrying plastic bags, beer, pizza, the cheap kind Marcus always loved. He walked toward apartment 4B. My in-laws' apartment. He stopped at their door, looked around, then pulled out a key. My heart stopped, because when he lifted his head for just a second to check if anyone was watching, the camera caught his face, that beard, those eyes, that scar above his left eyebrow from the motorcycle accident when he was 17. Marcus, my dead husband, my deceased, buried, mourned for 3 years husband, standing in that hallway, alive. Walking into his parents' apartment like he owned the place, Mrs. Higgins fast-forwarded. He comes every Friday night, 2 a.m., like clockwork, just like your payments. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. My hands were shaking so hard I thought they might fall off. That's impossible. I buried him. I saw the casket. I planned the funeral. Did you see the body, dear? No, I didn't. The casket was closed. They said he was too badly burned in the car accident. That it would traumatize me to see him that way. Mrs. Higgins rewound the footage to 3 weeks ago. Same time, same man. But this time, as he entered the apartment, he pulled off his hood completely. He was smiling, laughing even. He looked healthy, well-fed, happy, while I was drowning in debt and guilt and grief. Last month, Mrs. Higgins continued, I saw him counting money. Right there in the hallway before he left. A thick stack of bills. I thought maybe I was going crazy, but then I checked the date. It was exactly 1 day after I saw you deliver that envelope to his mother. The room started spinning. 3 years. 3 years of sacrificing everything. I sold my grandmother's wedding ring. I moved us into a 1-bedroom apartment in the worst part of town. I pulled my son out of private school. I ate ramen noodles for dinner so he could have real food. I worked myself to exhaustion. I cried myself to sleep every single night. For what? To fund my husband's secret vacation from responsibility? Mrs. Higgins, I said, my voice barely a whisper. Can you send me all of this footage? She nodded. Already did, honey. Check your email. And Maya. She squeezed my hand. Whatever you're planning to do, make it count. I stood up. My legs felt like they were made of concrete, but I forced them to move. I walked to the door, opened it, and looked down the hallway at apartment 4B. The door where my husband had just taken another $1,000 from me. The door where his parents were probably laughing at how stupid I was. The door where my entire life had become a sick, twisted joke. I didn't knock. Not that night. Because I had learned something important over these 3 brutal years. Revenge isn't a dish best served hot. It's best served cold. Calculated, devastating, and I was about to serve a feast. If you're enjoying this story and want to see how Maya takes down her fake dead husband, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. You won't believe what she does next. Trust me, this gets so much darker. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that security footage. Marcus, alive, laughing, counting my money. I sat at my kitchen table, laptop open, scrolling through every frame Mrs. Higgins had sent me. 23 videos in total. 6 months of Friday night visits. 6 months of proof that my life had been a carefully constructed lie. But to understand how deep this betrayal went, I need to take you back. Back to 3 years ago. Back to the day my world supposedly ended. It was a Tuesday morning, March 15th. I remember because it was our anniversary, 7 years of marriage. I had planned a surprise dinner. Nothing fancy, we couldn't afford fancy. But I'd saved up for weeks to buy ingredients for his favorite meal. Chicken parmesan, garlic bread, a cheap bottle of red wine. He never came home. At 11 p.m., there was a knock on my door. 2 police officers. The expression on their faces told me everything before they even opened their mouths. Mrs. Bennett? Maya Bennett? Yes? There's been an accident. Your husband, Marcus Bennett. His car went off the Henderson Bridge around 6 p.m. this evening. The vehicle caught fire before we could extract him. I'm so sorry for your loss. The world stopped. Just stopped. Like someone had pressed pause on reality itself. No, I whispered. No, that's not possible. He was supposed to be home for dinner, he promised. Ma'am, we need you to come identify some personal effects. His wallet survived the fire, and his wedding ring. They drove me to the station. Everything was a blur. Fluorescent lights, the smell of burnt coffee and cleaning products, forms, so many forms, and then they showed me the evidence bag, his wallet, scorched. The leather melted in places, but his driver's license was still visible behind the warped plastic window. His wedding ring, the simple gold band we'd bought at a pawn shop when we were too young and too broke to know better. The body, I managed to say. I need to see him. The female officer, Rodriguez, her nameplate said, put a hand on my shoulder. Mrs. Bennett, the fire was extremely intense. The medical examiner strongly advises against viewing the remains. The identification was made through dental records. It's him. I'm sorry. But seeing him like that, it won't give you closure. It will only give you nightmares. I believed her. God help me. I believed every word. The funeral was 4 days later. A closed casket. Mahogany. The cheapest one the funeral home offered. But it still cost $3,000 I didn't have. I put it on a credit card. Marcus's parents, Robert and Linda Bennett, sat in the front row beside me. Linda sobbed into a handkerchief. Robert stared straight ahead, his jaw clenched, silent tears rolling down his weathered face. He was our only son, Linda whispered to me after the service. Our only child, our whole world. I hugged her, held her while she shook with grief. I know. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I couldn't save him. She pulled back, looked at me with red, swollen eyes. There's something we need to tell you, Maya. Something Marcus made us promise to keep secret. My blood ran cold. What? Robert cleared his throat. The accident. It wasn't just an accident. Marcus was running from something. From someone. What are you talking about? Linda gripped my hands. Her fingers were ice cold. He borrowed money, a lot of money, from very dangerous people, loan sharks. He was trying to start a business, wanted to surprise you, but it went bad, really bad. They want their money back, $50,000, plus interest. $50,000? I couldn't breathe. How could he borrow that much without telling me? He didn't want to worry you, Robert said. He thought he could handle it. But these people? Maya, they don't care that he's dead. They told us the debt transfers to the family, to you. If you don't pay, they'll... He trailed off, but the implication was clear. I felt like I was falling. falling and falling with no ground in sight. I don't have $50,000. I don't have $5,000. We have $700 in our savings account. We know, Linda said, squeezing my hands tighter. We talked to them. We negotiated. They'll accept payments, $1,000 a month, every month, for the next several years. If you miss even one payment, she didn't finish. She didn't have to. That night, I held my son, Tyler, while he cried himself to sleep. He was only 5 years old, too young to understand death, too young to understand that his father was never coming home. Mommy, when is Daddy coming back? He's not, baby. He's in heaven now. Can we visit him in heaven? Not yet, sweetheart. Not for a very long time. But I miss him. I didn't get to say goodbye. Neither did I, Tyler. Neither did I. The next morning, I started making changes. Brutal, painful changes. I sold my grandmother's wedding ring, a family heirloom, to a pawn shop for $800. I sold our car. We moved out of our modest 2-bedroom apartment into a 1-bedroom in a building where the heat barely worked, and the walls were so thin you could hear your neighbors breathing. I got a second job. During the day, I worked as a receptionist at a dental office. At night, I cleaned office buildings. Tyler stayed with a neighbor, Mrs. Chen, who charged me $20 a day. I saw my son for maybe 2 hours between jobs. Every month, like clockwork, I delivered that envelope to Robert and Linda. $1,000 in cash. They always answered the door looking frail, exhausted, broken. Their apartment was always cold. They always wore the same old, threadbare clothes. "Bless you, Maya," Linda would say, taking the envelope with trembling hands. "You're saving our lives. The loan sharks call us too. They threaten to hurt us if you don't pay. You're protecting all of us." And I believed them. Every single time, I believed them. I visited Marcus's grave every Sunday, rain or shine. I brought flowers when I could afford them. When I couldn't, I brought stones and made little cairns on the grass beside his headstone. "I'm trying, Marcus," I would say, kneeling in the damp earth. "I'm trying so hard to fix what you broke. I'm trying to keep us safe. Tyler asks about you every day. I tell him you were a hero, that you were brave, that you loved us more than anything." The guilt ate me alive. If I had been a better wife, maybe he wouldn't have felt the need to borrow money. If I had worked harder, earned more, maybe he wouldn't have felt so desperate. If I had just been enough, maybe he'd still be alive. 6 months after the funeral, I had to pull Tyler out of his private kindergarten. I couldn't afford the tuition anymore. He cried, begged me not to make him leave his friends. "I'm sorry, baby. I'm so sorry. But we have to make sacrifices right now. It's what Daddy would have wanted." Another lie I told myself to sleep at night. I stopped buying new clothes. I stopped going to the hair salon. I stopped doing anything that cost money unless it was absolutely necessary. My friends stopped calling because I always said no to everything. Coffee, can't afford it. Movie night, too expensive. Birthday dinner, sorry, I have to work. Eventually, they stopped asking. I became invisible, a ghost in my own life. I existed only to work, to pay, to survive. Robert and Linda called me their angel. They told relatives how selfless I was, how devoted. At family gatherings, the ones I forced myself to attend even though every second felt like torture, people would hug me and tell me how strong I was. "Marcus would be so proud of you," his cousin Jennifer said at the 1-year anniversary memorial. "The way you've held everything together. You're amazing." I wasn't amazing. I was drowning. But I smiled and nodded and thanked her for her kind words because that's what you do when you're barely surviving. You pretend, you perform, you protect the lie because the truth, that you're breaking into 1,000 pieces, is too ugly to share. 2 years passed. Then 3. The debt was down to $23,000. Only 23 more months of payments. Only 23 more months of this hell. I told myself I could make it. I told myself that once the debt was paid, I could breathe again. Tyler and I could have a real life. Maybe I could go back to school. Maybe I could find a better job. Maybe, just maybe, I could forgive myself for not being able to save my husband. But then Mrs. Higgins showed me that video. And I realized I hadn't failed to save Marcus. I had been paying for his freedom. While I worked myself to the bone, he was living, breathing, eating, drinking, laughing. While I cried at his grave, he was counting the money I had just given to his parents. While I told our son that his father was in heaven, his father was hiding in a trailer somewhere, living his best life without the burden of a wife and child. The rage that filled me in that moment was unlike anything I'd ever felt. It wasn't hot. It wasn't explosive. It was cold, surgical, precise. I opened my laptop again and started a new document. At the top, I typed 3 words, Project Resurrection. Then I began to plan. First, I needed proof that the body in the grave wasn't Marcus. That evidence would be crucial for everything that came next. Second, I needed to find out where he was really living. The security footage showed him visiting his parents' apartment, but he clearly wasn't living there full-time. Where was he staying? Who was he with? Third, I needed to understand the full scope of the conspiracy. Were Robert and Linda the only accomplices, or were there others? And finally, most importantly, I needed to create a trap so perfect, so devastating, that when I sprang it, Marcus would have nowhere to run and no one to turn to. I had spent 3 years being a victim. It was time to become something else entirely. I took out my phone and made the first call. Memorial Gardens Cemetery? Yes. Hi. This is Maya Bennett. I need to discuss exhuming my husband's grave. I have reason to believe there may have been an error in the burial. Yes. I'll hold. The woman on the other end put me on hold. Elevator music played. Some instrumental version of a pop song I vaguely recognized. I didn't feel nervous. I didn't feel scared. I felt alive for the first time in 3 years. Mrs. Bennett? Yes, you'll need to file a petition with the county courthouse and obtain permission from next of kin. In this case, that would be Mr. Bennett's parents. Do you have their consent? I smiled. A real smile. The kind that would have terrified anyone who saw it. Oh, don't worry. I'll get their consent one way or another. The next morning, I called in sick to both jobs. First time in 3 years. My supervisors were shocked. I was the one person who never missed a day, never complained, never asked for anything. Are you okay, Maya? My manager at the dental office asked, genuine concern in her voice. Just a stomach bug. I lied smoothly. I'll be back tomorrow. I wouldn't be back tomorrow, but I'd cross that bridge when I came to it. I dropped Tyler off at school and kissed his forehead. He looked up at me with Marcus's eyes, the same dark brown owl with the same long lashes, and for a moment, I felt my resolve waver. Mommy, are you sad? No, baby. Why? You look different, like you're mad at something. Smart kid. Too smart. I'm not mad, sweetheart. I'm just tired. I love you so much, okay? More than anything in this whole world. I love you too, Mommy. I watched him walk into the school building, his backpack almost as big as he was, and I made a silent promise. I would fix this, not just for me, but for him. He deserved a mother who wasn't drowning. He deserved the truth about his father, no matter how ugly it was. My first stop was the library. I needed information, and I needed it without leaving a digital trail on my personal devices. I sat at one of the public computers and started researching exhumation laws in our state, fraud, insurance fraud, faking your own death, apparently more common than I thought. I read case after case of people who'd staged elaborate deaths to escape debt, failed marriages, criminal charges. Some got away with it for years. Some got caught immediately. Marcus had gotten away with it for 3 years, but his time was up. I printed out everything I needed: the legal requirements for exhumation, the contact information for private investigators, the statutes on insurance fraud and identity falsification. The printer hummed, spitting out page after page of damning information. Then I searched for obituaries. Marcus Bennett. March 15th, 3 years ago. There it was. His smiling face, a photo from our wedding day. Both of us young and stupid and convinced we'd beat the odds. The obituary his parents had written: Marcus Anthony Bennett, beloved son, devoted husband, and loving father, passed away tragically on March 15th at the age of 31. Marcus was a dreamer, an entrepreneur, and a man who loved his family more than life itself. He is survived by his parents, Robert and Linda Bennett, his wife Maya, and his son Tyler. In lieu of flowers, donations can be made to the family to help with funeral expenses and outstanding debts. Outstanding debts. They'd actually put that in his obituary. Asking for money before his body was even cold, or before the empty coffin was even in the ground. I felt bile rise in my throat. I saved the obituary, printed it, and moved on to my next search: death certificates. I needed to see the official paperwork. The library computer wouldn't let me access those records. They required government ID verification, but it showed me where to go. The county clerk's office. I drove there in my beat-up Honda Civic, the one I'd bought for $800 after selling our decent car to pay Marcus's fake debt. The check engine light was on. It had been on for 6 months. I couldn't afford to fix it. The county clerk's office was in a gray government building that smelled like old paper and bureaucracy. I took a number, 47, and sat in an uncomfortable plastic chair to wait. The TV in the corner was playing the news. Something about a political scandal. Something about rising gas prices. Something about a missing person found alive after 10 years. 10 years. Marcus had only made it 3. Amateur. Number 47. I approached the counter. The clerk was a middle-aged woman with reading glasses on a chain and an expression that said she'd stopped caring about her job sometime during the Clinton administration. I need a copy of a death certificate, I said. My husband's, Marcus Anthony Bennett, died March 15th, 3 years ago. ID and $15. I slid both across the counter. She typed slowly, her long acrylic nails clicking against the keyboard with each letter. Says here the certificate was issued by Dr. Richard Holloway, medical examiner. Cause of death: severe burns and blunt force trauma, consistent with motor vehicle accident and subsequent fire. Body identified through dental records. She looked up at me. You need a certified copy? Yes, please. She printed it, stamped it with an official seal, and slid it back to me in a manila envelope. Sorry for your loss, she said mechanically, already calling the next number. I sat in my car in the parking lot and opened the envelope. There it was. Official proof that Marcus Anthony Bennett was legally dead, signed by a medical examiner, filed with the state, completely, utterly legitimate. Except it wasn't. I pulled out my phone and called the medical examiner's office. Yes, hi, my name is Maya Bennett. I'm calling about a death certificate issued by Dr. Holloway 3 years ago for Marcus Bennett. I have some questions about the identification process. One moment, please. Hold music. Always hold music. This is Dr. Holloway. His voice was gruff, tired, a man who'd seen too many dead bodies and not enough reasons to care. Dr. Holloway, I'm Maya Bennett. You signed my husband's death certificate 3 years ago. I sign a lot of death certificates, Mrs. Bennett. Marcus Bennett. Car accident and fire on Henderson Bridge. March 15th. You identified him through dental records. A pause. The sound of typing. Yes, I have the file here. What's your question? I need to know about the body, the condition it was in, the identification process. Another pause. Longer this time. Mrs. Bennett, I don't usually discuss these details with family members. It's not pleasant. I need to know, please. He sighed. The body was severely burned. 3rd and 4th degree burns over 98%. The fire was intense, accelerated by the gasoline in the vehicle. By the time the fire department got it under control, there wasn't much left to identify visually. We used dental records provided by his dentist, Dr. Samuel Chen. The records matched. That's how we made the positive ID. Did you examine the body personally? I supervised the examination. Yes. But did you physically examine it yourself? Or did someone else do the actual work? A longer pause. I could feel his suspicion growing. Why are you asking these questions, Mrs. Bennett? If you're considering a lawsuit, I'm not. I just need to understand. Please. Did you personally verify the dental records against the body? My assistant handled the initial examination. I reviewed his findings. The match was conclusive. Who was your assistant? Mrs. Bennett? Who was your assistant? Dr. Holloway. David Martinez. He's been with the office for 15 years. Very thorough, very professional. If you're implying, I'm not implying anything. Thank you for your time. I hung up before he could ask more questions. David Martinez. I wrote the name down in the notebook I'd started keeping, my investigation journal. Next to it, I wrote, find him. Talk to him. But first, I needed to do something that terrified me more than anything else in this whole nightmare. I needed to open that grave. I called the one person I knew who would help me without asking too many questions. My cousin Ray. Ray was the family member you called when you needed something done that wasn't exactly legal, but wasn't exactly wrong either. He'd done time for breaking and entering when he was younger, but he'd cleaned up his act. Mostly. Maya? Holy shit. Is that you? Haven't heard from you in forever? I know. I'm sorry. I've been busy. I heard about Marcus. I wanted to come to the funeral, but I was in county lockup. I know. Mom told me. He laughed a bit sheepishly. Yeah, that. But hey, I'm out now. Staying clean. Got a job at a garage and everything. What's up? I need your help with something. Name it. I need to dig up Marcus's grave. Silence. Long, heavy silence. You need to what now? I need to exhume his coffin. Tonight. Quietly. Without permits or permission. Maya, that's illegal. That's really illegal. That's desecration of a grave, tampering with remains, possibly grave robbery depending on what you're planning. Ray, Marcus is alive. Another silence. Then, run that by me again. I told him everything. The security footage, the fake death, the debt payments, all of it. When I finished, Ray whistled low. That motherfucker. That absolute piece of shit motherfucker. Will you help me? Hell yes, I'll help you. Nobody fakes their own death and makes my cousin pay for it. Nobody. When do we do this? Tonight? 2 a.m. Bring shovels and bolt cutters in case the mausoleum has a lock. He's in a mausoleum. Fancy. His parents insisted. Another $3,000 I didn't have. Don't worry, 'cause we're getting to the bottom of this. Literally. That night, I told Mrs. Chen I had to work a double shift and asked if Tyler could sleep over. She agreed. She always agreed. Bless her. And gave me a look that said she knew something was wrong but wouldn't pry. At 1:30 a.m., I picked up Ray. He was waiting outside his apartment building with a duffel bag full of tools. He tossed it in the back seat and climbed in. I can't believe we're doing this, he said, but he was grinning. Ray always did like an adventure. We're not doing anything. I'm doing this. You're just... Moral support with a shovel. Moral support with a shovel. That's going on my gravestone. We drove to Memorial Garden Cemetery in silence. The gates were closed, but Ray had brought bolt cutters for that too. The chain snapped easily, and we pushed the gates open just enough to drive through. The cemetery at night was different, darker. The streetlights only reached so far, leaving pools of shadow between the headstones. Somewhere in the distance, an owl hooted. Creepy as hell, Ray muttered. Just drive. I directed him to Section C, Row 12. Marcus's mausoleum was a small structure made of white marble, the cheapest option, but still nicer than a ground burial. His name was engraved on a bronze plaque. Marcus Anthony Bennett. 1992-2023. Beloved son, husband, and father. Should say, beloved conman, Ray said. The mausoleum door had a lock. Ray made quick work of it with the bolt cutters. The door swung open with a creak that sounded like a scream in the quiet night. Inside, it was dark. Ray pulled out a flashlight. The beam illuminated a single marble shelf with a coffin on it. Mahogany. The same one I'd picked out, drowning in grief and guilt. You sure you want to do this? Ray asked quietly. I'm sure. We pulled the coffin off the shelf. It was lighter than I expected, which should have been my first clue, and carried it outside. Ray had brought a crowbar. He wedged it under the lid. Last chance to back out, he said. Open it. He pried. The wood cracked. The lid lifted. And there, inside the coffin that I had paid for, that I had cried over, that I had believed contained my husband's remains. Sand. Just sand. Bags of it. The kind you buy at Home Depot for filling sandbags. With the price stickers still on them. I stared at it. Ray stared at it. Neither of us spoke for a long moment. That son of a bitch, Ray finally said. That absolute son of a bitch didn't even try to make it realistic. Sand. He used sand. I reached in and pulled out one of the bags. It was heavy. Maybe 50 pounds. There were 4 of them. 200 pounds of sand where my husband should have been. Something broke inside me then. Not broke like shattered. Broke like a dam finally giving way. I started laughing. Couldn't stop. I laughed until tears ran down my face, until my sides hurt, until Ray looked genuinely concerned. Maya, you okay? I buried sand, I said between gasps of laughter. I cried over sand. I brought flowers to sand. I told my son his father's body was here. Sand, Ray, fucking sand. We should take pictures, Ray said, ever practical. Evidence. He was right. I pulled out my phone and took photos. The open coffin, the bags of sand, the Home Depot stickers, the empty mausoleum. Everything. What now? Ray asked. Now we put it back exactly how we found it, and I go find David Martinez. We returned the coffin to its shelf, closed the mausoleum door, and replaced the broken lock with a new one Ray had brought. He really had thought of everything. We swept away our footprints and drove out of the cemetery, closing the gates behind us. You know what the worst part is? I said as Ray drove me home. That your husband faked his death and stole 3 years of your life. No. The worst part is that I believed them. I believed every lie. I believed his parents when they cried. I believed the doctor when he showed me the death certificate. I believed Marcus was dead because I couldn't imagine someone being cruel enough to make their wife think they were dead while they were actually just… what? Living their best life somewhere. Hiding from responsibility. Hey, Ray said gently. That's not your fault. You trusted people you loved. That's not a weakness. That's being human. Well, being human sucks. Yeah, he agreed. Sometimes it really does. The next morning, after 2 hours of sleep, I started searching for David Martinez, the assistant medical examiner who had supposedly verified Marcus's dental records 3 years ago. I found him on Facebook within 10 minutes. His profile was public. Some people really needed to learn about privacy settings. He worked at a different medical examiner's office now, 2 counties over. His profile picture showed him at a barbecue, smiling, holding a beer. I sent him a message. Mr. Martinez, my name is Maya Bennett. You performed the examination on my husband Marcus Bennett 3 years ago following his death in a car accident. I have some questions about the identification process. Would you be willing to speak with me? It's very important. I didn't expect a response right away, but my phone pinged 30 minutes later. Mrs. Bennett, I remember your husband's case. I'm very sorry for your loss. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. I'm free for coffee tomorrow afternoon if you'd like to meet in person. There's a Starbucks on 5th and Main in Riverside, 2 p.m. work for you. Tomorrow. I could wait until tomorrow. I'd waited 3 years. What was one more day? That would be perfect. Thank you so much. That afternoon, I went back to work at the dental office. My supervisor, Karen, pulled me aside. Maya, are you sure you're feeling better? You look, I don't know, different. I'm fine, I lied. Just needed a day to rest. But I wasn't fine. I was a bomb waiting to explode. And when I did, Marcus Bennett and everyone who helped him would feel the blast. The next day, I drove to Riverside. The Starbucks was busy, lunch rush just ending, but I spotted David Martinez immediately. He looked just like his Facebook photo, mid-30s, Latino, kind eyes, wearing business casual clothes. Mrs. Bennett? He stood when I approached. Please, call me Maya. David. We shook hands. He'd already bought me a coffee. I got you a latte. Hope that's okay. It's perfect. Thank you. We sat. I took a sip of the coffee, my first real coffee in months, not the instant stuff I made at home, and tried to figure out how to begin. David saved me the trouble. You said you had questions about your husband's examination. I have to be honest. I've thought about that case a few times over the years. Something about it always bothered me. My heart rate picked up. What do you mean? He pulled out his phone and scrolled through something. I keep notes on my cases. Personal notes, not official records, just things that strike me as odd or worth remembering. Your husband's case? Here it is. He showed me his phone. A note dated 3 years ago. Bennett case, burned body from car accident. Dr. Holloway insisted on quick processing. Unusual. Dental records matched, but victim's parents seemed more relieved than grieving. Wife not present for ID. Body released to funeral home same day. No toxicology, no autopsy. Doctor. H signed off without usual protocols. Something off. I read it twice. 3 times. Dr. Holloway rushed the processing. David nodded. Usually with burned remains, we're very thorough. Toxicology to check for drugs or alcohol. Full autopsy despite the condition of the body. We take our time, but Dr. Holloway pushed to get it done fast, said the family was distraught and wanted the body released quickly for religious reasons. At the time, I didn't think much of it. But later what? Dr. Holloway retired 6 months after your husband's case, moved to Florida, bought a very nice house on the beach. Very nice. The kind of house medical examiners usually can't afford. My hands were shaking. I set down the coffee cup before I spilled it. Are you saying Dr. Holloway was bribed? I'm saying things didn't add up. And then, about a year ago, I was having drinks with a buddy who works at the dental office where your husband's records came from. Dr. Chen's office. I mentioned the case. No names, just the details, and he told me something interesting. What? He said Dr. Chen had complained about missing patient files around that same time. Someone had broken into the office. Nothing valuable was taken, just patient records. The police never found who did it. The room tilted. Marcus's dental records. Maybe. Or maybe someone who knew they needed dental records that would match a specific body. What body? I whispered. David leaned forward. Mrs. Bennett, Maya. I think someone found a burned body, maybe from another accident or even from a morgue, matched it with stolen dental records, and paid Dr. Holloway to rush the paperwork. I think your husband's death was staged. Very carefully. Very deliberately staged. I know, I said. He blinked. You know? He's alive. I've seen him. I have video footage of him. I opened his grave last night. It's full of sand. David sat back in his chair, stunned. Holy shit. Holy shit is right. You need to go to the police. I will, but not yet. First, I need to understand the full scope of this. Who else was involved? How much money did they pay Dr. Holloway? Where is Marcus now? I need evidence. Real, concrete, undeniable evidence. Because when I go to the police, I want to make sure every single person involved goes to prison. David pulled out a business card and wrote something on the back. This is my personal cell. Call me if you need anything at all. I'll help however I can. What they did, what Dr. Holloway did, it makes a mockery of my profession, of every legitimate death I've processed. I want to see them all burn. They will, I promised. They will. I left the Starbucks with David's number and a plan forming in my mind. I needed to find Marcus. Not just catch him on camera at his parents' own apartment, but find where he actually lived, who he was with, what he'd been doing for 3 years while I paid for his freedom. That evening, I parked across the street from Robert and Linda's apartment building. I had a thermos of coffee, a blanket, and all the patience in the world. It was Thursday. According to Mrs. Higgins's footage, Marcus came every Friday night. I would be waiting. Hours passed. 10 p.m., 11 p.m., midnight. My eyelids grew heavy, but I forced them open. Tyler was at Mrs. Chen's for the night. I had nowhere to be but here. At 1:47 a.m., a figure appeared at the end of the street. I sat up straight. It was him. Hoodie, baseball cap. That familiar walk. I'd know it anywhere, even after 3 years. I waited until he entered the building. Then I got out of my car. I had a small camera in my pocket, one of those cheap spy cameras Ray had gotten me from God knows where. I followed Marcus into the building, staying far enough back that he wouldn't hear me. He took the stairs. Of course he did. The elevator was loud and obvious. I climbed after him, my footsteps silent. Years of cleaning offices at night had taught me how to move without making sound. He stopped at 4B. Knocked 3 times. The door opened immediately. Linda must have been waiting. About time, I heard her hiss. Your father and I need that money. The electric bill is due, and I know, I've got it. His voice, I hadn't heard his voice in 3 years. It hit me like a physical blow. The door closed. I crept closer, holding up the camera to the peephole. The angle wasn't perfect, but I could see them in the living room. Marcus was counting out cash. Bills. Lots of them. He handed a stack to Linda. $2,000 this month, he said. Had a good score. A good score? Robert's voice now, coming from somewhere off camera. Gambling again? Marcus? That's how you got into this mess in the first place. I'm not in a mess anymore, Dad. I'm free. Free from that nagging bitch. Free from the debt. Free from that life. Best decision I ever made. Linda laughed. Actually laughed. Maya certainly made it easy. She believed everything. Sweet, stupid Maya. Is she still paying? Marcus asked. Every month, like clockwork. $1,000. We told her you owed $50,000. We've collected 36 so far, only 14 more to go, and then we'll tell her the debt is paid. She'll finally be free. Linda said it mockingly, cruelly. Should have told her you owed $100,000, Marcus said. We could have milked this for years. They all laughed. I recorded every word, every sick, twisted laugh. And then Marcus said something that made my blood run cold. Hey, did either of you check on that grave lately? Make sure nobody's messed with it? Why would anyone mess with it? Robert asked. I don't know, just paranoid, I guess. Sometimes I worry Maya will figure it out. She's smarter than she looks. Marcus, relax. She's so beaten down she can barely function. I see her at the grocery store sometimes, counting pennies to buy the cheap pasta. She's not figuring anything out. She's surviving, barely. Good, Marcus said. Keep it that way. The longer this goes, the more money we make. He stood up, pocketed some of the cash he'd brought. His parents didn't get all of it, apparently, and moved toward the door. I ran, down the stairs, out the building, into my car. I drove 3 blocks away and parked, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold the steering wheel. I had everything now. Video of Marcus alive, proof the grave was fake, David Martinez's testimony about the suspicious circumstances, a recording of Marcus and his parents admitting to the fraud. I had everything I needed to destroy them. But I wasn't going to the police yet. Oh no, I was going to make them suffer first. I didn't sleep that night either. How could I? I had everything I needed to send Marcus and his parents to prison. But prison felt too easy, too quick, too merciful. They had stolen 3 years of my life, 3 years of my son's childhood, 3 years of tears and guilt and backbreaking work. They had turned me into a ghost, and they'd laughed about it. No, prison would come. But first, they would know what it felt like to be haunted. I spent the entire next day planning. Tyler was at school. I'd called in sick again. At this point, I'd probably be fired, but I didn't care. Money didn't matter anymore. Revenge did. I sat at my kitchen table with my notebook open, writing and rewriting my plan. It had to be perfect. 1 chance. I'd only get 1 chance to do this right. The key was Marcus's greed. That's what had started this whole nightmare. And that's what would end it. He was still taking money from his parents, money they were still taking from me. He came every Friday like clockwork, a creature of habit. What if the habit changed? What if there was suddenly more money on the table? Much more. I picked up my phone and called Linda. My hand was steady. My voice would be steadier. Maya! Linda answered on the 3rd ring, her voice dripping with false warmth. How are you, dear? We've been thinking about you. I bet you have, I thought. Thinking about my money. Hi, Linda. I'm okay. Actually, I'm calling because something happened. Something good? Finally. Oh, I could hear the suspicion in her voice. Good things didn't happen to Maya. Maya was their cash cow, their victim. She wasn't supposed to have good news. My aunt passed away last month. My dad's sister. I didn't know her very well. We weren't close. But apparently she left me some money in her will. $20,000. Silence. Then, oh my goodness, Maya. That's wonderful. You must be so relieved. I am. And I've been thinking. I know I still owe $14,000 on Marcus's debt. What if I just paid it all off? All at once. I could finally be free of this. Tyler and I could start fresh. I could stop working 2 jobs. I could breathe again. Another pause. I could practically hear the gears turning in Linda's greedy mind. Are you sure, dear? That would leave you with only $6,000. That's not very much for a fresh start. I know. But being free of the debt is worth it. Besides, I've been thinking about Marcus a lot lately, about what he would want. He'd want me to take care of this, wouldn't he? He'd want me to be free. He would, Linda said, her voice thick with fake emotion. He'd be so proud of you, Maya. So proud. I wanted to vomit. There's just one thing, I continued. The money is in cash. My aunt didn't trust banks. It's in a safe deposit box, and I need to go pick it up this week. But I was thinking, the 3-year anniversary of Marcus's death is coming up. What if we did something special? A memorial service, just family, at your apartment, and I could bring the money then. Pay off the debt in Marcus's memory. It feels right, doesn't it? That's beautiful, Maya. Really beautiful. When were you thinking? This Friday night. I know it's short notice, but I already talked to some of Marcus's cousins, and they can make it. We could do it at 8 p.m. I'll bring food. And the money, of course. Friday night at 8, we'll be here. Oh, Maya, this is going to be such a healing experience for all of us. Healing. Right. I'll see you then, Linda. And thank you for everything you've done, for taking care of me when I was lost. I'll never forget it. We love you, dear. We're family. I hung up and immediately called Ray. It's happening Friday night. Are you in? Hell yes, I'm in. What do you need? I need you to call the police at exactly 8:30 p.m. Friday. Tell them you have evidence of insurance fraud and a faked death at this address. I gave him Robert and Linda's address. Tell them it's urgent. Tell them the perpetrator will be on the premises. Done? What else? I need you to be there, outside, recording everything. In case things go wrong. Things won't go wrong. You've got this. And Ray, thank you for believing me, for helping me. Family helps family, even when it involves digging up fake graves and taking down piece of shit husbands. Next, I called David Martinez. Maya, everything okay? I need one more favor, a big one. Name it. I need you to come to an address on Friday night at 8 p.m. I need you to be ready to testify about Dr. Holloway, about the suspicious circumstances of Marcus's death examination, about everything. Can you do that? Absolutely. Send me the address. Then I made the hardest call. Mrs. Higgins. Mrs. Higgins, it's Maya. I need to ask you something, and I need you to trust me. Of course, dear. What is it? Can you make copies of all the security footage you have of Marcus? Every video? And can you come to Linda and Robert's apartment Friday night at 8 p.m.? I'm going to need you to show those videos to some people. Is this about what I think it's about? Yes. Then I'll be there. With bells on, that boy and his parents deserve everything coming to them. Finally, I called Marcus's extended family, his cousins Jennifer and Tom, his uncle Steve, his aunt Patricia, people who had hugged me at the funeral, who had told me how strong I was, who had genuinely cared. I'm hosting a 3-year memorial for Marcus, I told each of them. Just a small gathering at his parents' place, Friday at 8 p.m. It would mean so much if you could come. I have something important to share about Marcus, something that will bring us all closure. They all said yes. Of course they did. They were good people who had loved Marcus and felt sorry for his widow. They had no idea what they were walking into. Friday came. I dressed carefully. Not in black this time. I'd worn black for 3 years. Instead, I wore red. A bright, blood-red dress I'd bought from a thrift store specifically for this occasion. I picked up Tyler from school and took him to Mrs. Chen's. "Big sleepover tonight, buddy. Mrs. Chen said you can stay up late and watch movies." "Why can't I come to Grandma and Grandpa's?" he asked. "Because I'm about to destroy them," I thought. "Because I'm about to blow up everything you thought you knew about your father. Because this is adult stuff. Boring grown-up talk about memories. You'd hate it, but tomorrow, I promise, we'll do something fun, just you and me. Okay?" "Okay, Mommy. I love you." "I love you too, baby, more than you'll ever know." I arrived at Robert and Linda's apartment at 7:45 p.m. I was carrying 2 things. A large shopping bag full of food I'd bought, sandwiches, cookies, drinks, and a manila envelope containing $14,000 in cash. Except it wasn't real cash. It was prop money. Movie money. I'd ordered it online for $40. It looked real enough from a distance, but up close, you could see the words, "For motion picture use only," printed on each bill. Linda opened the door. She was dressed in her best morning outfit, a black dress, pearls, the picture of a grieving mother. "Maya, come in, come in." The apartment smelled like air freshener, the cheap kind that just masks odors instead of eliminating them. The living room had been set up for a gathering. Folding chairs, a small table with photos of Marcus. Robert sat in his armchair, looking uncomfortable in a suit. "Evening, Maya," he said gruffly. "Hi, Robert." I set down the food and looked around. "I hope everyone can fit. I invited quite a few people." Linda's smile faltered. "Oh, how many people?" "Just close family. Jennifer, Tom, Uncle Steve, Aunt Patricia, and a couple of other friends who wanted to pay their respects. Is that okay?" "Of course," Linda said, but her voice was tight. "The more the merrier. It's just, we thought it would be more intimate. You, us, and the money. I mean, the memorial." "Oh, the money will come. Don't worry. After everyone arrives, I want to make it special, public, so everyone can see how I'm finally free of Marcus's debt." The doorbell rang. Jennifer and Tom arrived first, followed quickly by Uncle Steve and Aunt Patricia. They hugged me, expressed their condolences again, commented on my red dress. "You look different, Maya," Jennifer said. "Stronger. There's something in your eyes." "I feel different," I told her. "I feel like I'm finally waking up from a long nightmare." More people arrived. By 8:15, there were 15 people crammed into the small apartment, all of them people who had known and loved Marcus, all of them about to learn the truth. Mrs. Higgins arrived at 8:20, carrying her laptop. David Martinez came at 8:25, looking professional in a suit. Ray was outside in his car, ready to call the police in 5 minutes. At exactly 8:30, I stood up and cleared my throat. "Thank you all for coming. I know this is unusual, a memorial 3 years later, but I have something important to share with all of you. Something about Marcus, about his death, about the truth." Linda and Robert went pale. "Maya," Linda said, her voice sharp, "maybe we should discuss this privately." "No," I cut her off. "No more private discussions, no more secrets, no more lies." I pulled out my phone and connected it to a Bluetooth speaker I'd brought. Then I played the recording from last Friday night. Marcus's voice filled the apartment. "Had a good score, 2,000 this month. Gambling again. Marcus, that's how you got into this mess in the first place. I'm not in a mess anymore, Dad. I'm free from that nagging bitch, free from the debt, free from that life. Best decision I ever made." The room went silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Jennifer stood up. What is this? Is that Marcus?" "Yes," I said. "That's Marcus, my dead husband, recorded last Friday night at 2 a.m. in this very apartment." "That's impossible," Uncle Steve said. "Marcus is dead. We buried him." Did we? I turned to Mrs. Higgins. Would you mind showing everyone the footage? Mrs. Higgins opened her laptop and pulled up the security videos. One by one, she played them on the TV. Marcus entering the building, Marcus counting money, Marcus laughing, Marcus very much alive. People started shouting. Jennifer was crying. Tom looked like he was about to punch someone. Aunt Patricia had her hand over her mouth in shock. You knew, Jennifer said to Linda and Robert. You knew he was alive. You've been helping him. We can explain. Robert started. Explain what? I said, my voice cold. Explain how you helped your son fake his death. Explain how you've been taking $1,000 a month from me for 3 years. Explain how you spent that money on yourselves while I worked myself to death and told my son his father was in heaven. Maya, please. Linda reached for me. I stepped back. Don't. Don't you dare touch me. I turned to David Martinez. David, would you mind explaining to everyone what you found in your investigation? David stood up. My name is David Martinez. I was the assistant medical examiner who processed Marcus Bennett's body 3 years ago, except there was no body. The remains were likely from another accident, matched with stolen dental records. Dr. Holloway, who signed the death certificate, retired 6 months later and bought a beach house in Florida. He was paid off. The whole thing was a fraud. More gasps, more shouts. And finally, I said, for anyone who still doesn't believe me. I pulled out my phone and showed them the photos from the cemetery, the open coffin, the bags of sand, the Home Depot stickers still visible. I exhumed his grave. This is what was inside. Sand. 50-pound bags of playground sand. That's what I've been mourning for 3 years. That's what I brought flowers to every Sunday. Sand. The room erupted. People were yelling at Linda and Robert. Jennifer was demanding answers. Uncle Steve was on his phone, probably calling someone, and that's when it happened. The door to the back bedroom, the one I knew Marcus had been hiding in since 7 p.m., waiting for everyone to leave so he could collect his fake payoff, burst open. Marcus ran out, pushing past Aunt Patricia, heading for the front door. But Ray was faster. He'd come up the stairs the moment I'd started playing the recording. He blocked the doorway, 6 feet tall and 200 pounds of angry cousin. Going somewhere? Ray asked. Marcus spun around, wild-eyed, and that's when everyone got their first good look at him. He'd changed, gained weight. His beard was longer, but there was no mistaking those eyes. Those were Marcus's eyes. Marcus, Jennifer whispered. Oh my God, Marcus. Marcus looked at his parents. Oh, you said this would work. You promised. Shut up, Linda hissed. Just shut up. But it was too late. The confession was out in the open. Tom lunged at Marcus, but David and Uncle Steve held him back. 3 years. We cried for you. Maya destroyed herself for you. And you were just, what? Hiding. Having fun. I had debts, Marcus shouted. Real debts. To dangerous people. I had to disappear. Liar, I screamed, and everyone went quiet. There were no debts. There were never any debts. I checked. I hired a private investigator after I found out you were alive. You gambled away our savings? Yes, but there were no loan sharks. No dangerous people. You just didn't want to be a husband anymore, or a father. So you ran. You were too much of a coward to divorce me, so you died instead, and you made me pay for your freedom. Maya, don't say my name. You lost the right to say my name when you watched me cry at your funeral and felt nothing. Sirens wailed outside. The police were here. Ray had made the call right on schedule. Marcus tried to run again, but Ray grabbed him and shoved him into a chair. You're not going anywhere, man. You're going to sit right here and wait for the cops like the coward you are. Linda started crying. Real crying this time. Not the fake tears she'd shed for 3 years. We didn't have a choice. Marcus was in trouble. We had to help him. You had a choice, I said. You chose to destroy me. You chose to take my money. You chose to look me in the eye every month and lie. Those were choices. And now you'll face the consequences. The police knocked on the door. Ray let them in. 3 officers, looking confused by the crowd of people. Someone called about insurance fraud? The lead officer asked. And that would be me, I said, stepping forward. My name is Maya Bennett. 3 years ago, my husband Marcus Bennett faked his death. His parents helped him. They've been defrauding me ever since. I have evidence. Recordings, video footage, testimony from the assistant medical examiner, and Marcus himself is right here. I pointed at Marcus, who had gone pale as a sheet. The officer looked at Marcus, then at Linda and Robert, then back at me. Ma'am, those are serious allegations. They're not allegations, they're facts, and I can prove every single one of them. I spent the next hour explaining everything to the police. I showed them the videos, played them the recordings, gave them David Martinez's contact information, showed them the photos from the grave, handed over copies of the death certificate and insurance paperwork. Marcus sat in silence, his head in his hands. Linda and Robert tried to claim ignorance, but the recording destroyed that defense. We were just trying to help our son, Linda sobbed. By committing fraud? The officer asked. By stealing from his widow? At 10 p.m., they arrested all 3 of them. Marcus for faking his death and insurance fraud. Linda and Robert for conspiracy and fraud. As they led Marcus out in handcuffs, he looked at me one last time. I'm sorry, he said. No, you're not, I replied. You're sorry you got caught. There's a difference. They took him away. They took his parents away. And suddenly, the apartment was quiet except for the sound of Jennifer crying and Uncle Steve making phone calls. Jennifer hugged me. I'm so sorry, Maya. I'm so sorry we didn't know. We should have helped you more. You didn't know, I said. None of you knew. They were very good liars. What happens now? She asked. Now I get my life back. I sue for every penny they stole. I clear Marcus's fake debt. I tell my son the truth. And I finally breathe. Ray drove me home that night. We didn't talk much. What was there to say? When he dropped me off, he hugged me tight. You did it, 'cause you really did it. We did it. I couldn't have done this without you. What are you going to tell Tyler? The truth. Maybe not all of it, not right away, but the truth. He deserves that much. I went inside my small apartment, took off the red dress, and put on my pajamas. I made myself a cup of tea and sat at the kitchen table, alone with my thoughts. For 3 years, I'd been living in hell, thinking it was my fault, thinking I'd failed Marcus, thinking I deserved the pain. But I hadn't failed anyone. Marcus had failed me. His parents had failed me. The system had failed me. But I hadn't failed myself, not in the end. My phone buzzed. A text from David Martinez. I gave a full statement to the police. They're going to investigate Dr. Holloway, too. You did the right thing, Maya. I hope you can find peace now. Peace. What a strange word. What did peace even feel like after 3 years of war? I'd find out soon enough. The next 72 hours were a blur of police stations, lawyers, and paperwork. So much paperwork. I gave my statement 4 times. Each time, I had to relive the past 3 years. Each time, I had to explain how thoroughly I'd been deceived. Each time, the officers looked at me with a mixture of pity and respect. Mrs. Bennett, in all my years on the force, I've never seen someone build a case this thoroughly. Detective Sarah Morrison told me on Monday morning. Most victims of this kind of fraud never figure it out. And the ones who do usually just walk away. But you documented everything. You got confessions. You brought us a gift-wrapped case. I didn't want there to be any doubt, I said. I didn't want them to have any way out. They don't. The DA is charging Marcus with insurance fraud, falsifying a death certificate, and conspiracy to commit fraud. That's 15 to 20 years. His parents are looking at 10 to 15 as accomplices. And we're going after Dr. Holloway too, thanks to David Martinez's testimony. Good. There's something else you should know. We searched Marcus's actual residence. Turns out he's been living in a trailer park about 40 miles from here, with his girlfriend. She's 23 years old. Had no idea he was supposed to be dead. Of course there was a girlfriend. Of course there was. Did she know about me? About Tyler? Detective Morrison shook her head. She thought his name was Mike Carson. Thought he was divorced. He told her his ex-wife was crazy and had poisoned his son against him, so he couldn't see the kid. She believed him completely. Another victim. Another woman he'd lied to. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost, what happens now? Now you wait for the trial. Could be 6 months, could be a year, but based on the evidence you've provided and their confessions, I'd say this is pretty open and shut. They're going away for a long time, Amaya. You made sure of that. I walked out of the police station into bright sunlight. It was Tuesday afternoon. I'd taken the whole week off from both jobs, this time officially, explaining the situation to my bosses. Both of them had been incredibly understanding. The dental office even started a collection to help me get back on my feet. People were good. Most people were good. I'd forgotten that in the past 3 years. My phone rang. A number I didn't recognize. Hello? Mrs. Bennett. This is Gerald Hoffman from Hoffman & Associates. I'm an attorney specializing in fraud cases. I heard about your situation through the police department, and I'd like to offer you my services pro bono. Pro bono? Free of charge. Your case is exactly the kind of thing I became a lawyer to handle. When I heard what your husband and his parents did to you, I knew I had to help. Plus, frankly, this case is going to make headlines. The publicity alone is worth more than any fee you could pay me. I don't know what to say. Say yes. Let me help you get every penny back. We're going to sue Marcus for the money you paid his parents. We're going to sue his parents for fraud and emotional distress. We're going to sue the insurance company he defrauded. They'll want to recover their payout, and you're entitled to a portion. We're going to go after Dr. Holloway's assets, and we're going to set up a trust fund for your son. By the time we're done, Tyler's college education will be paid for, and you'll never have to work 2 jobs again. I felt tears streaming down my face. Why? Why would you do this for me? Because 20 years ago, my mother was in a situation similar to yours. Not exactly the same, but similar enough. Someone helped her then. Now I help people like her. Like you. So what do you say, Maya? Will you let me fight for you? Yes, I whispered. Yes, please. Good. Come by my office tomorrow at 10 a.m. Bring every piece of documentation you have. We're going to war. I hung up and stood on the sidewalk, crying. A woman walking past stopped. Are you okay, honey? Yeah, I said, wiping my eyes. Yeah, I think I finally am. That evening, I picked up Tyler from Mrs. Chen's. I'd been staying with her all week, but it was time to go home. Time to start facing reality. Tyler ran to me and hugged my legs. Mommy, I missed you. I missed you too, baby. So much. Mrs. Chen pulled me aside. Maya, I saw the news. About Marcus. Are you all right? The news. Of course it had made the news. Man fakes death. Forces widow to pay fake debt for 3 years. It was the kind of story that spread like wildfire on social media. I'm okay. Better than okay, actually. What are you going to tell Tyler? The truth, as much of it as he can handle at his age. I took Tyler home, made him dinner, mac and cheese, his favorite. While he ate, I sat across from him and held his little hand. Tyler, I need to talk to you about Daddy. His face lit up. Did you go to heaven to visit him? No, sweetie. But Daddy isn't in heaven. His face crumpled with confusion. Is he in the bad place? Did Daddy do something bad? Daddy did do something bad. Something very bad. But he's not in the bad place either. He's alive, Tyler. Daddy's alive. Tyler's eyes went wide. Alive? But you said he died in a car accident. I thought he did. We all thought he did. But Daddy lied to us. He pretended to die because he didn't want to be with us anymore. And that was wrong. Very, very wrong. Can I see him? Tyler asked, his voice small and hopeful. My heart broke all over again. Not right now, baby. Daddy's in trouble with the police because of the bad things he did. He's going to be in jail for a long time. Did he not love us? How do you answer that question? How do you tell a 6-year-old that his father chose money and freedom over him? I think Daddy loved us in his own way. But sometimes people make terrible choices even when they love someone. Daddy made a terrible choice. He hurt us, and now he has to face the consequences. Are you sad? I'm not sad anymore. I was sad for a long time, but now I'm just relieved. Relieved that I know the truth, and relieved that you and I can finally move forward. Will we be okay, Mommy? I squeezed his hand. We're going to be better than okay, baby. I promise. Things are going to get so much better. And they did. Over the next few months, Gerald Hoffman worked miracles. He sued Marcus, Robert, and Linda for every penny they'd stolen from me, $36,000 plus interest. He sued the insurance company Marcus had defrauded and negotiated a settlement of $75,000 for me as compensation for the trauma I'd endured. He went after Dr. Holloway's assets. The beach house in Florida was seized by the state, and Holloway was ordered to pay $50,000 in restitution. In total, I received $180,000, more money than I'd ever seen in my life. But more than the money, I got something else: closure. Marcus pleaded guilty to avoid trial. In his plea deal, he got 18 years. Robert and Linda pleaded guilty too, 12 years each. Dr. Holloway was still fighting his charges, but Gerald assured me he'd lose. The day of Marcus's sentencing, I went to the courthouse. Not because I wanted to see him, but because I needed to. I needed to look him in the eye one last time and know that justice had been served. He shuffled into the courtroom in an orange jumpsuit and handcuffs. He'd lost weight in jail. He looked older, smaller, defeated. The judge read the sentence: 18 years in a federal prison. Marcus would be 52 when he got out. Tyler would be 24. A grown man who would have no memory of his father except the story of how he abandoned us. Before they took him away, Marcus looked at me. Our eyes met across the courtroom. He mouthed something. I couldn't hear it, but I could read his lips. I'm sorry. I stood up. The judge looked at me, surprised. Victims didn't usually speak at sentencing hearings unless they'd arranged it beforehand. Your Honor, may I say something? The judge nodded. Briefly, Mrs. Bennett. I walked to the front of the courtroom and looked directly at Marcus. You're sorry, I said. You've said that a lot lately. You said it when the police arrested you. You said it in your plea agreement. You're saying it now, but I don't think you know what that word means. Sorry means you regret your actions because they hurt someone you love, but you don't love me. You never did. If you loved me, you wouldn't have been able to watch me suffer for 3 years. You wouldn't have been able to take my money while I cried at your grave. You wouldn't have been able to sleep at night knowing your son believed his father was dead. So no, Marcus, you're not sorry. You're just sorry you got caught. And that's not the same thing. I want you to think about that every day for the next 18 years. I want you to think about how Tyler will grow up without you, how he'll graduate high school, go to college, get married, have children, all without you, because you chose to be dead. And now you get to live with that choice. As for me, I'm done. I'm done crying. I'm done feeling guilty. I'm done letting you haunt me. You wanted to be dead? Fine. You're dead to me. You have been since the moment I saw that security footage. The man I married, the man I loved, he never existed. You were always this person, a coward, a liar, a fraud. Enjoy your grave, Marcus, the one you built for yourself. I turned and walked out of the courtroom. I didn't look back. Outside, the sun was shining. Birds were singing. The world kept turning, indifferent to my pain, indifferent to Marcus's fate. But I wasn't indifferent anymore. I felt alive, free, reborn. Gerald was waiting for me outside with Ray and Jennifer. That was brutal, Ray said, but he was smiling. Remind me never to piss you off. How do you feel? Jennifer asked. Light, I said. I feel light, like I've been carrying a body on my back for 3 years, and I finally got to bury it. Gerald handed me an envelope. The final settlement check, $180,000 minus legal fees and expenses, comes out to $162,000. It's yours, Maya, every penny. I looked at the check, at the number, at the proof that I'd won. What are you going to do with it? Jennifer asked. First, I'm taking Tyler on vacation, a real vacation, Disney World or the beach or wherever he wants to go. Then I'm going back to school. I'm going to finish my degree, get a career, not just a job. And the rest, I'm saving it. For Tyler's future. For emergencies. For the life we should have had all along. You deserve it, Gerald said. All of it and more. Thank you for everything. Thank me by living well. That's the best revenge you can have. He was right. Living well was the best revenge. But watching Marcus get dragged away in handcuffs, that was a close second. ACT 5. The Final Ascension. 125 pi 135 $. English version, 6 months later. I stood in front of the mirror in my new apartment. A real 2-bedroom in a safe neighborhood with working heat and walls thick enough that I couldn't hear my neighbors breathe. Tyler had his own room. I had mine. We had a living room with furniture that didn't come from the curb. We had a kitchen where all the appliances worked. It was a small miracle, paid for by the settlement money. But the real miracle was the woman staring back at me in the mirror. She looked different. Her eyes were clear. Her shoulders were straight. She wore a navy blue pantsuit, professional, confident. Her hair was cut and styled properly for the first time in 3 years. She looked like someone who had survived hell and come out stronger. She looked like me. "Mommy, you look pretty," Tyler said from the doorway. He was getting ready for school, his backpack already on. "Thank you, baby. You look handsome too. Is today the special day?" "It is. Today's the day I go back to school." I'd enrolled in community college, business administration. Gerald had helped me apply for grants and scholarships. With my story and circumstances, I'd qualified for almost everything. Between that and the settlement money, I could afford to go to school part-time while working 1 job instead of 2. Just 1 job. At the dental office. Karen had promoted me to office manager when she heard I was going back to school. Better pay, benefits, respect. "I'm proud of you, Mommy," Tyler said. I knelt down and hugged him. "I'm proud of us, baby. We did this together. You were so brave through everything." "Do you think Daddy thinks about us?" He still asked about Marcus sometimes. Less and less as time went on. But the questions still came. I'd learned to answer them honestly but gently. I think he probably does. And I think he probably regrets what he did. But that doesn't change anything. He made his choice, and now he has to live with it. I don't want to see him when he gets out of jail. You don't have to. That's completely your choice. And if you change your mind when you're older, that's okay too. There's no right or wrong answer here. Okay. He hugged me tighter. I love you, Mommy. I love you too, more than all the stars in the sky. I dropped Tyler off at his new school, a good public school in our new neighborhood, and drove to campus. My hands shook a little as I parked. It had been 8 years since I'd sat in a classroom. What if I'd forgotten how to be a student? What if I was too old, too tired, too broken? But then I remembered. I'd taken down 3 criminals with nothing but determination and a plan. I'd survived 3 years of hell. I'd rebuilt my entire life from scratch. I could handle a few college classes. My first class was Introduction to Business. I walked in and took a seat in the middle row. The classroom filled up with students, some my age, most younger. A few looked as nervous as I felt. The professor walked in. Dr. Patricia Chen, mid-50s, wearing a sharp blazer, carrying herself with the kind of confidence I wanted to have someday. "Good morning. Welcome to Introduction to Business. I'm Dr. Chen, and over the next 16 weeks, we're going to explore what it takes to build, run, and sustain a successful business in the modern economy." She clicked through her PowerPoint. The first slide read, "What is business?" At its core, Dr. Chen said, business is about solving problems, identifying what people need and figuring out how to provide it. But more than that, it's about resilience. Because in business, as in life, things will go wrong. Plans will fail. People will disappoint you. The market will shift. And when that happens, you have 2 choices: give up or adapt. She paused and looked around the room. The businesses that survive aren't the ones with the best ideas or the most money. They're the ones with the most resilience. The ones that can take a hit and keep moving forward. The ones that learn from failure instead of being destroyed by it. I thought about Marcus, about his parents, about how they'd tried to destroy me and how I'd refused to stay destroyed. I pulled out my notebook and started taking notes. After class, I checked my phone. 3 messages. Ray. First day back, how'd it go? Proud of you, cuz. Jennifer. Thinking about you today. You've got this. Tyler's lucky to have you. Gerald Hoffman. Maya, I have news. Call me when you can. I called Gerald immediately. Maya, how was your first day? Good. Really good. What's the news? Dr. Holloway's case went to trial. He was found guilty on all counts. The judge sentenced him to 12 years and ordered him to pay an additional $100,000 in fines and restitution. $25,000 of that is coming to you. $25,000. More money I'd never expected to see. Gerald, I don't know how to thank you. You already did. You trusted me. You let me help you. And you didn't let them break you. That's all the thanks I need. Still, when this is all over, dinner's on me. I'll hold you to that. Oh, and one more thing. A producer from a true crime podcast reached out to my office. They want to tell your story. You'd be paid for your participation, and you'd have full creative control over how it's presented. Are you interested? A podcast. My story. Out there for the world to hear. A year ago, the thought would have terrified me. The shame. The embarrassment. The judgment. But now? Yes, I said. I'm interested. If my story can help even one person recognize the signs of this kind of fraud, it's worth it. I'll send you the contact information. Take your time deciding. No pressure. I hung up and sat in my car, processing. My story was going to be told, not as a victim, not as a cautionary tale, but as a survivor, as someone who fought back and won. That afternoon, I picked up Tyler from school. He was buzzing with excitement. Mommy, guess what? We're learning about heroes in class, and I told everyone you're my hero. Oh, sweetie, it's true. Mrs. Anderson asked why, and I said because you caught the bad guys, and you took care of me, and you never gave up. And Mrs. Anderson said that's what real heroes do. They don't have superpowers. They just keep going even when things are really, really hard. I pulled over to the side of the road because I couldn't see through my tears. Baby, you're going to make me cry. Happy crying or sad crying? The happiest crying. He unbuckled his seatbelt and climbed over to hug me. We sat there in the car, holding each other, and I realized something profound. I'd spent 3 years thinking I was paying for Marcus's death. But I hadn't been paying for death. I'd been paying for life, my life, the life I'd get to live once I stopped being his victim and started being my own hero. And now, that life was finally beginning. That evening, after Tyler went to bed, I sat on my couch with a cup of tea and my laptop. I opened a new document and titled it, The 3 Years I Paid for a Dead Man, and I started writing, not for the podcast, not for anyone else, but for me, because I needed to tell the story from beginning to end. I needed to document every detail, every emotion, every moment of pain and triumph. I wrote for hours, about the funeral, about the debt, about the discovery, about the revenge, about the trial, about the aftermath. When I finished, the sun was coming up. I had 50 pages of single-space text, my story, raw and honest and mine. I saved the document and closed my laptop. Then I walked to Tyler's room and watched him sleep for a moment. Peaceful, innocent, safe. Your daddy tried to bury us, I whispered. But he forgot that we weren't dead. We were seeds, and now we're growing. 3 weeks later, the podcast episode aired. The Ghost Husband, what it was called. Over 2 hours of interviews, reenactments, and analysis. I listened to it with Ray and Jennifer at my apartment. When it finished, we sat in silence for a moment. That was intense. Ray finally said, I lived through it with you, and it was still intense. Do you think people will judge me? I asked. For not figuring it out sooner? For being so naive? Jennifer shook her head. No one who hears this story will judge you. They'll judge Marcus. They'll judge his parents. they'll judge Dr. Holloway. But you're the hero of this story, Maya. You're the one who fought back. The podcast went viral. Within a week, it had over 1 million downloads. Within 2 weeks, a literary agent contacted me about writing a book. Within 3 weeks, I was being invited to speak at conferences about fraud prevention and survivor empowerment. My life had become something I never could have imagined. But the strangest thing happened 1 month after the podcast aired. I received a letter. From prison. From Marcus. I stared at the envelope for a long time before opening it. Part of me wanted to throw it away unread, but another part, the part that had spent 3 years demanding answers, needed to know what he had to say. I opened it. Dear Maya, I heard the podcast. Someone played it in the common area, and I heard our story told from your perspective. I heard how much you suffered. I heard what I did to you. I know you don't want to hear from me. I know I have no right to contact you, but I need to say something, even if you throw this letter away without reading it. You were right. At the sentencing, when you said I wasn't really sorry, you were right. I wasn't. I was sorry I got caught. I was sorry my plan failed. But I wasn't sorry for what I did to you. But hearing your voice on that podcast, hearing you describe what those 3 years were like, something broke inside me. Or maybe something finally started to work right. I don't know. I am sorry now, truly, deeply sorry. Not because I got caught, not because I'm in prison, but because I hurt you, because I hurt Tyler, because I destroyed something good and beautiful just because I was too much of a coward to face my own failures. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I want you to know that you won, not just legally, not just financially, but in every way that matters. You took the worst thing that ever happened to you and turned it into strength. You became the person I always pretended to be. Brave, resilient, unstoppable. Tyler is lucky to have you. The world is lucky to have you. I hope you never think of me again. I hope you build a life so full and happy that I fade into nothing but a bad memory you barely recall. You deserve that. You deserve everything good. I'm sorry, Marcus. I read the letter 3 times. Then I folded it carefully, put it back in the envelope, and placed it in a box in my closet labeled Evidence, Keep for Legal Purposes. Maybe one day I'd show it to Tyler, when he was old enough to understand. Or maybe I'd just keep it as a reminder that even the worst people can eventually recognize what they've done wrong. But it didn't change anything. Marcus was my past. He would always be my past. My future was something else entirely. 2 years later, I graduated from community college with a 4.0 GPA and transferred to a 4-year university. Tyler was 8 years old and thriving. I was working as an accountant at a mid-sized firm, using the skills I'd developed from managing 2 jobs and tracking every penny for 3 years. The book I wrote became a bestseller. Buried. My 3 years paying for a dead man's freedom. Sold over 100,000 copies in the first year. I donated 50% of the proceeds to organizations that help victims of fraud and domestic financial abuse. I started speaking at conferences, at universities, at support groups, telling my story, helping others recognize the warning signs, encouraging people to trust their instincts when something feels wrong. And slowly, gradually, I became more than Marcus Bennett's widow. I became Maya Bennett, survivor, author, advocate, mother, hero. On the 3-year anniversary of Marcus's arrest, 6 years after his fake death, I took Tyler to the cemetery. Not to Marcus's empty grave, but to a different part of the cemetery. A memorial bench I'd had installed, dedicated to survivors of fraud and financial abuse. The plaque read, "For those who were buried by lies but refused to stay down, you are stronger than you know." Tyler and I sat on the bench together, eating ice cream and watching the sunset. "Mom?" he asked. He called me Mom now, not Mommy. He was growing up. "Yeah, baby." "I'm glad you didn't give up." "Me too, Tyler, me too." "Do you think about Daddy anymore?" "Sometimes, but not the way I used to. Now when I think about him, I mostly just feel nothing. He's not worth my anger anymore. He's not worth my pain. He's just gone." "Good," Tyler said. "Because we're better without him anyway." I hugged my son, this brave, brilliant boy who had survived something no child should have to survive, and I realized something. Marcus had tried to kill me without actually killing me. He'd tried to bury me alive under debt and guilt and grief. But he'd failed, because I'd done what dead things can't do. I'd grown. I'd changed. I'd risen. And now, standing in a cemetery at sunset with my son beside me and my future ahead of me, I was more alive than I'd ever been. Marcus Bennett had died 6 years ago. But Maya Bennett had just been born. If this story moved you, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. Justice isn't always served this perfectly in real life, but stories like Maya's remind us that sometimes the truth does come out, and karma is real. Share this with someone who needs to hear that they're stronger than they think. Thanks for watching.